Conditional statements and scopes. A conditional statement lets your code make decisions. Do this if something is true, otherwise do that. In the real world, we make decisions, like if we go to grocery store and we check for if the item A is available, then we will buy it. If that particular item is not available, then we have two options. We will buy item B or we won't be buying anything at all. Now, similar to this, our program makes decisions. And I always say try to learn programming with real world examples and you will grasp the concept faster. So how do we make decisions in our program? For this, let's go back to console. And firstly, I want you to think how we make decisions in real life. Like in our above example, we have checks that if item A is available, then I will buy it. If not, I will check if item B is available and buy that. Or if both are not available, then I will just return home empty-handed. So how do we write it in JavaScript? So the syntax to write the conditional statement is, we would say if, then the open and close bracket and the braces. So now here inside these brackets, the parentheses, we have to write the condition which would result into true or false. So here we can say is item A available, and based off the value of this variable, we would simply say buy it. But in case it is not available, we can write else if. Actually, first look at else. That is going to be simple. So if item is available, we will buy it. Otherwise, we will just leave. So right now we don't have the variable is item A available. So let's first build that and then check this condition. So we are going to first create the variable is item A available is equal to true. And then I'm going to paste the condition that we wrote. And what I'm going to do is instead of just having comments, I'm going to console log here. Now similarly, if the item is not available, I'm going to console log not available. And when I press enter, you can see I can print available because we set the value to true. So this if condition is actually true. And if the condition is true, then we'll execute this line of code or whatever that is written between this open bracket and this closing bracket. And if the condition is false, we will be executing this code. Now let's enhance our example. So I'm going to copy this and clear the console. And now actually instead of having just one variable, I'm going to add another variable is item B available and set it to true. And in this example, I'm going to set item A to false. So how we can write the multiple conditions here? Now, first of all, the if will be executed, and based off that, if the item A is not available, and this time we will check item B availability. So if I write it like two separate ifs, this also work. Now this is one condition and this is one complete condition. But in our case, we want to check if item A is not available, only then check item B availability. So how we do that is we use something called else if. If item A is not available, then check whether item B is available. So here, let's change the variable. And I will also update the console logs for this. So now we have our complete condition. Let's execute this code and see what it returns. So as you can see, we get item B available because item B availability was set to true. So this is how we write conditional statements in our program. Now I want to talk about a very important thing here, and that is called scopes. Okay, so let's talk about scopes. A concept that explains why a variable works in one place and throws an error in somewhere else. Scope is basically the area of your code where a variable can be accessed. And JavaScript has three levels: the global scope, the function scope, and the block scope. So in global scope, variables are declared outside any function or our statements or block. And they live for the entire program and they can be accessed from anywhere in our files. So in our example, we have used the global scope. And I can access item A available or is item B available anywhere in our code block. Anything that I write after this if-else conditions, I can access these variables in there as well. The second one is function scope. Variables declared inside a function with var, let, constant. They exist only while that function runs and vanish when it returns. So right now, let's skip the function scope because we need to talk about functions first, what a function is, and then we can define what a function scope is. So the block scope is basically whatever that is declared inside the curly brackets, like we just wrote for if-else. Those are called blocks, and the variables that are declared inside, they are only visible within those brackets. And we can declare block scope variables using let and const, while var ignores block scope entirely. Now let's go back to the console. I'm going to clear our example. And I have this code for you, which I want you to think about and answer what is going to be printed on the screen. So when I hit enter, it printed Hisan. And the reason for that is we are using var. And even though we have declared or defined our variable inside the if block, I can access it anywhere in my program. And this was a problem why we were introduced with something like let and const. Now if I try the same example with a let and hit enter, you can see I get back the error, and which makes sense. Logically, if you think if I have defined or declared a variable inside some block, in our case that is if block, it shouldn't be accessible outside of it. So let and const are block scope, var ignores block scope entirely, and this is one more reason to avoid using var. You now have decision making and a sense of where variables live. Now let's revisit this comparison table that I showed you earlier in the videos. And specifically in here, I want you to focus on scopes. So var is function scope, let and constant are block scope. We still have to look into hoisting, so I know that and we will talk about it later. It is not part of the fundamentals right now. But now you understand scopes and what are the scope for each of the type of the variable that we have in JavaScript. Now there is one more scope you might be confused with and which we skipped for now, that was function scope. But we will discuss about that in the next video, what a function is. But before that, I want to show you a simpler way of writing a condition, another operator known as ternary operator. Okay, so I'm back in the console now. Once your if-else logic is simple enough, just two outcomes, then there is a shorter way to write it with a ternary operator. So in this example, I have declared one variable called status, and I have defined another variable called age. So what we are going to do is basically check if the age is above 18, then the status is going to be adult, otherwise it is going to be minor. So with if-else, our condition and our code is going to look like this. We are going to check if age is greater than 18, then status is adult, and if the age is below 18, then it is going to be minor. Now when we execute this code, it works. But there is a simple way to do this if-else condition. Instead of writing if-else, what we can do is status is equal to age greater than 18. Actually, let's do greater than equal 18. Then what we want the value of status, adult. And in case the age is below 18, we want the value to be minor. So this is the syntax that we can use, a single line code. And if I press enter, you can see the status is set to minor. And this is just a short way of writing our simple if-else condition using ternary operators. So that's all for conditional statements and scope for now. Let's talk about what a function is.